Welcome. We're going to be talking about default network training today, about a specific, about the process and getting to a specific case. So I used to call default network training attachment neurotherapy before the default network really was coming into existence. And default network, as you see, serves the attachment system. Okay, so the question is, we have operant conditioning. We can change motor behaviors. We can change brain behaviors, but what should we change them towards? What kind? We typically know what's good motor behaviors, like someone sitting still when they need to, at dinner, or when they need to be quiet in a classroom. But what constitutes healthy brain habits? That's the $64,000 question. So some interesting things. Should it be that we should always have a deactivated 10L, 10 Brodmann area on the left side, Brodmann area 10, because that's what you see when someone's contemplating God? Is that how we should always be? Or should we, over here on the right, this is during meditation, where we see a lack of blood flow going into the right temporal parietal junction, also called Brodmann area 39R. Should we have that? Ironically, in the default network, that is included. 10L is not in the default network. Default network looks like this. It's got this back in the part, this posterior part, an anterior part, and some wings and some temporal areas you can't see at the moment. Okay, so let's look at the attachment networks. Again, we are a very social creature. We aren't like turtles who release their eggs and then bury them, run away, and then all the young have to fend for themselves. We have all this caretaking going on. Well, the reason why we have caretaking going on is because we have a system that is reliable for this caretaking, and this is the default network, and it starts particularly in the posterior cingulate. I like to call it posterior cingulate the maternal hub. You can see this data, how this is the bold signal, orbits or collects around or coordinates, is the best word, with the posterior cingulate, the area nearby. The default network was discovered, I think, about almost 20 years now, maybe 19 years ago. And it constitutes, the best way to think about it at the level that we look at, what the electrodes can get to, is this parietal wing area. That's 39, maybe a little 40. The medial temporal, 21. The posterior cingulate, which is area 23, and the area around that is actually area 31. And then the medial prefrontal cortex, which is area 9, and also can incorporate area 32 and a little of the other, and a little of 10, but usually we think of 9 as where it's centered at. Well, they're looking at default network in babies, and we notice, like this is, I call the mom spot, the posterior cingulate, that's responsible for nurturing. And you don't even recognize the dad spot till later. The dad spot is this protective area. The area 9 deals with social fairness and protective behaviors, among others. And that's not even detected till 1 year of life. Interesting. Okay, what's evidence that this is a mom spot and a dad spot? Well, let's look at how mom and dad are represented in the head. Well, here's mom down here. Mom actually is also up in the dad spot as well. Got some representation up in the front there. But you do see the face is being represented in the back, in the posterior cingulate precuneus area. And dad's face is up in the front. When mom gives birth, her PCC gets bigger, increased gray matter. When dads give birth, have a new child, their wife gives birth, or their partner gives birth, they actually have a reduction of the PCC, and more material now goes to up in the front in near area 9, around area 9, including area 9. So you get more an increase in the paternal hub. Our children's faces are represented in those wings, in the parietal wings, which we talked about. So you'll see how the default network, which I like to call the auto-relating network, how we relate to ourselves, is overlaps with the default network. It is the same network. Okay, so when it comes to EEG signals, we can think of how an EEG signal, what parallels or underlies the signals. And blood flow is the most important currency in the brain. It's in the body itself. The brain is a very expensive organ. And what you're looking at here is, for instance, how you have neuroactivity and the blood flow falls after that. Soon after we use up our energy, we need some more. This is just showing all the capillary space and major arteries. Okay, so there's this interesting covenant between the heart and the brain. The brain is very expensive tissue, but it's going to eventually help out and get more resources in, but it takes decades. In our species, it takes decades for the brain to really start producing more calories than it consumes. It's a very delayed covenant in a way, in terms of the transaction takes forever for the brain to start paying off what the heart has been giving it all that time. As you've heard, is the brain is 2% body weight in our species, but it takes about 1/5 of the resting oxygen and blood flow. Now, default network is a very interesting organization. And the first thing, if you look at default network, it's like I said, here's the wings, here's that 21, the medial temporal location, here's area 9. They're all at the end, and if we could look at the medial inside the brain in a second, we'll see the arteries heading to the posterior cingulate. They're all at the end of the line. Think of it like being at the end of the line on a subway, what that means. You're always, if you're at the end of the line of a resource, like the end of the line of a cafeteria line, what's the chances that they're going to have the food you want when you get up there? Well, when you're standing up or sitting up, when you're bipedal and your head is oriented in this fashion, you got the heart's trying to get blood to all the areas, and it's fighting against gravity. So we have this gravity involvement in our posture and how the blood flow is, resources get to the brain areas. So think of it, you're at the end of the line, the cafeteria line, you get up there, you're out of almost everything. Same way that it's very likely that all these areas at the end of the line will be out. And in a way, the default network seems to be an alliance of these kingdoms, let's call them, or these fiefdoms, these regions that are poor when you're awake. However, when you roll your head back, you're at the end of the line of where gravity's now assisting you to get your resources. And the area 9, because you can put your head side to side. So now you can think, in a way, the default network's one of its goals, this alliance, is to get you to go to sleep, just like mom and dad. Just get the kids to go to sleep. Just go to sleep. And so in a way, we have this gravitationally assist system that developed probably because of gravity and how the heart relates to the brain. That will have to be proved eventually definitively, but because for instance, creatures that don't sleep in different ways shouldn't have a strong default network. Sometimes rats, they say, have a default network, but they don't lie supine. They lie lay down like a lot of animals do, but I don't think the default network is as strong as you see in the humans. It's really, like I say, this alliance of these end of the line systems that can find the way, if they can rotate the head, get the creature to sleep, they become rich. Okay, and resources. Well, the interesting thing is, in some respect, I like to believe that the brain wants to dream. It doesn't really want to be awake. It wants to dream because then it has all control. The only issue is, unfortunately, dreaming is expensive in terms of energy, like use of glucose and so forth. So after dreaming so much, the brain decides to activate the system that we call the waking system, the system that goes out in the environment and forages for energy. And go out there, get your energy so you can come back and I can go back to sleep and dreaming. In a way, if you look at the amount of time spent in sleep and then usually dreaming to a certain degree, usually about dreaming is 1/4, at least in humans, is 1/4 of our time. We actually don't have the most efficient brain at some level. The brown bats are actually much more efficient. They don't have to be up for 5 hours a day. They only have to interact with the harsh environment for 5 hours, and then go into their snooze time where they can be in this free state. So this just gives a list of where we fall. We are not at the top of the list or the bottom of the list there. Okay. Well, one of the other ways that life itself has hacked its energy needs is, instead of always being at maximum energy, because then you'd run out quickly, it comes up with these cycles. And we see circadian rhythms, which is based on the rotation of the Earth, how the sunlight will activate plants, and you have a circadian rhythm in plants, and even circadian rhythm in probably chemistry and other kinds of things that are not organic. But ultradian rhythms are these faster rhythms of arousal and rest, and you can clearly see in the EEG. Now this is going to be arousal, that's rest, arousal, rest. The circadian they blend together to this peak of rest, and right after lunch, typically the siesta time. So you see this arousal, rest, and the ultradian rhythm is actually a sign of life. Like if we're looking on Mars, or we're looking on some asteroid if we have some kind of process going on, if it's got circadian rhythms, that could be non-organic. If it's got ultradian rhythms, it's probably alive. It's life's way of hacking how to get your resources. You do a lot of energy and then you rest, hopefully in a safe area. So it's a lot about its resource management is going on in the brain. And what we've known for, look at that one, that's, what's that, 45 years ago? And we know for more than that, for about 55 years, or actually we've known probably since the 1920s, that you can see in the EEG the rest and activation cycles, and they were the first thing really noticed. The alpha rhythm was the rest cycle. When someone closed their eyes, you would see the alpha rhythm be prominent in the back of the head in particular, because that's where the visual processing is done. And when your eyes are closed, there's no need for it. And then when you open your eyes, you get some beta activity. You get these what's called desynchronization. So they have the synchrony, the alpha synchrony, you get desynchronization, and that's a sign of of work. Now, this is actually an old intracranial recording of the somatosensory strip, and this is looking at what's called the SMR rhythm, which is it's like a resting rhythm, but it's an alert resting rhythm of the motor system. And whenever it goes into this resting rhythm, idling rhythm, that means there's low blood flow up there. Because in fact, you can use the EEG as a marker of where the blood flow is in the neocortex, because to get out of the alpha rhythm, the resting rhythm, you got to have individual resources. It's like kids, they all have to play together if no one has allowances, but once they're given allowances, they can go run off and buy their candy or go to the movies and go do different things. Well, different things just shows up in the EEG as this lower amplitude signal, and then when they're all playing together in this resting state, that is the alpha rhythm, or here it's the SMR rhythm. SMR and alpha are the resting rhythms of the brain, neocortex, I should say. The SMR of the motor strip. Alpha is the rest of the head, pretty much. Okay, so the interesting thing is, you can see, as the blood flow is low, look at all this behavior down here, the EEG. It's kind of hard to see. I know it's black and white, it's an old one, but you see all this chatter going on. This is an epileptic. And this is actually hyperexcitability. The cells are firing. They're not coordinated activity here. It's just, you got spiking, you got real sharp waves going on, but they behave in these low blood flow intervals. Now, why is that the case? Because these recordings are happening down in the subcortex. This is the amygdala. This is the hippocampus regions, and you can see what happens is that, I like to say, there's a fundamental law of nature. You behave as long as you get your resources. The corollary would be, if your resources are threatened or they're deprived, you're likely to misbehave, because there's no reason, you get no benefit in behaving. But as long as you know you're going to get fed, you just wait in line. If food's running out, you run to grab the food. You stampede towards the resources. Misbehave. You don't act as one. So that's what you see. What happens here is when you pull blood flow out of the neocortex, and we can do that by inducing these spindles, they're called, these rhythms, sinusoidal rhythms. What happens is the blood flow, and the neocortex is very large. It's got a lot of cells. It's got 10 times more cells than the subcortex. So it needs a lot of blood. And so when it's going desynchronized, a lot of blood is up there. Well, when a lot of blood is up there, there's very little down in the subcortex. And that's why these are misbehaving. They're stampeding, trampling each other. But once you get the system to release that blood flow, go into this resting state, there's not enough resources to go around. So